So here we are in the garage, having coffee break. What kind of break are you having?
Shake break.
A shake break. Yep, we're having breaks because we're thinking about fixing CBRs, thinking about what to do next. We've finally got some parts that we've been waiting for, which we'll show you soon. What are you going to do? You're gonna be a helper, are you?
Yeah.
Sort of like a Superman, like a captain, right? Is that right? Or are you going to be a mechanic today?
A mechanic.
Mechanic. He's going to be the mechanic. I'm going to be the supervisor. We're going to fix CBR250RRs, maybe. With a bit of luck, we might get this bike running today. We seem to have the bits that we need. Well, we think we've got the bits that we need. We'll see anyway. Alright, we'll talk to you all soon and let you know how we're getting on. Okay, so since we last chatted here about this bike, I've had a battery arrive, which I've already installed in here. We have some power. The ignition switch on this is a little bit dodgy. Doesn't always power up properly. There we go. A bit of wiggling around. That's obviously going to need fixing. It looks like we're going to need. Looks like we might be missing some lights in the back of the controls, which perhaps need to be added in here. We can kind of wind it over now. I won't do that now because we've got a rag stuffed in the inlet manifold. So that's kind of where it's at. I haven't done a compression check on this yet. I probably will do one. I think I've got my compression check tool here. If I can get it easily enough, I'll do it. If I can't get it, I won't do it. I'd like to just get the bike running first before we do anything else with it. And then the other things that I've got here are some rental grips here. I looked online. It was, you know, the cost of buying these online as opposed to buying them in a shop. There's some pretty good shops here with pretty good prices. It wasn't really worth mucking around buying these online. I just ended up just buying them out of a shop, and I didn't want to wait. I just thought, well, if I buy them, I can have them straight away. Just really the grips that are on this bike at the moment are just rubbish. They're just naff. They've totally had it. I just want those replaced. Got some bar ends because this bike's got oddball bar ends. One there, which is completely different and ugly. I've got some pickups here, which we're also going to put on the back of the bike so that we can get the bike up on stands. I think it's going to be the first job to do. I've got genuine carb rubbers, which have arrived, manifold inlet rubbers, which are here. I've bought some of these also for my 400. Now the thing with these is I experimented with Chinese ones, and the Chinese ones were rubbish. They were just no good. They just don't work. So if you're going to buy inlet rubbers, just buy the genuine ones if you can get them. They're really, really good. They fit really well. The Chinese ones do not fit well, so don't buy on AliExpress. Don't buy anything that says it's from China in the way of carb inlet rubbers, or you'll be in trouble. I did, however, buy these from China, so this is a full set of carb needles. And I know from buying these for my 400 that these are okay. The only thing I found with the 400 is I suspect that they sell, I haven't been able to confirm this yet, but I suspect that they sell the same kit for the 400 and the 250 and just say that it all fits, which of course it doesn't. No, the rubbers fit, the needles fit, everything else fits, but the actual jets and stuff are all different sizes. So the jets that I got for my 400 were completely wrong, so I just left the original jets in because they were okay anyway, and just replaced all the other bits and pieces that I needed. So it'll be interesting to see how we get on with this. This is supposed to be for the MC22, so we'll see when we get into it. Got my carburetor down here with the old rubbers in here, and I'll show you that shortly, how they've sort of changed and are not really too usable anymore, and I'll show you why we're changing them. We'll get into that shortly. Alright, first job anyway is for me to get these spools onto the wheels. It's got the places to install, so I've already put a bolt in here. The first lot that I got were the wrong size, of course, because I didn't know what size these were. I think they're an M8. Anyway, that's them there. So that's what we're going to be installing, those. And we'll get onto that now. Get it up on some stands and I'll come back. Okay, I've got the first of the spools onto the rear swing arm here. I had a bit of trouble. The reason I had trouble because the thread just inside there just wasn't in good shape. One of the things that is really, really good to have in your arsenal of sort of weapons in your shed is definitely a tap and die set. This is just a cheap one, but you know, when you need to do a job like this and you need to clean the thread up, or you've got a dodgy thread, this is just indispensable to have. I ran that through a bit of WD-40. I'll show you on the next one. Thread locker, which goes on the end of the thread here, There's also another thing you need to do. These can rattle loose and they do fall off if you don't thread lock them. So everything on a motorbike, generally most stuff should be thread locked. The other good thing that I like about these spools is that they have an Allen key set up on the back of them. And this is particularly handy because what happens is if you have a crash and this slides along, quite often what happens is this ends up getting ground off. And even though these have a flat where you can put a spanner to tighten them up, what will happen is that that'll get ground down, and sometimes they're a real nightmare to get undone. Like you have half of the bolt kind of locked into the thing, and it becomes a bit of a hassle. Whereas these, they're quite well thought out with having this Allen key kind of bolt in the back. So even if this was to grind off on the front and it slid down the road, I could still get these out because I can put the Allen key in behind and undo them from behind, which is awesome. It's just a good little thing. I think it's worth paying a little bit more to have better spools like that. Anyway, on to the next one. So I thought that these were an M8. Sure enough, they are an M8. I can tell from the sizing on the actual bit here. Anyway, to get the size of the bit and the thread, what you do is you just basically put your bit up against your thread, and it should lock together. And you can see there it kind of locks together quite nicely. And thickness wise, it should fit in the hole, which this one does. So what we want to do is we just want to run a tap. We want to run a tap through this hole here, because probably what's happened is it's probably got a little bit of Loctite or something gummed in it, and that's probably why these things are quite hard to get in. So you basically put a little bit of WD-40 on your tool, or you could use like a cutting compound if you had that, a little bit in the hole, which I've already done. This should start to wind in by itself. Now you've got to be careful when you first start putting it in. If your thread's really damaged, you don't want to be cross-threading this, otherwise you're going to have a nightmare of a problem. There is a tool to go on the end of here. In fact, I'll use the tool on this side. I wasn't using the tool on the other side because I had my pipe in the way, and so it was easier for me to just put a spanner on the end and kind of wind it around. But this is kind of the thing that's supposed to go on the end, and this will make it a little bit easier to use on this side. So we just lock that on, and if threads, back it up. As it starts to get tight, you just back it up a little bit, and that kind of clears the cutting path. I think this side's okay actually. It feels like it's going in there pretty good. It's probably just the other side that was damaged, and this side's probably fine. Yes, it's a little bit tight there. So it's probably is just a little bit of Loctite or something in there. But generally this side's pretty good. It's going, and the other side was definitely more difficult than this. It didn't want to turn through very easily at all. I had to keep backing it off. Through now. Yeah, the other one, once you got in about three or four turns, it was definitely damaged. Just didn't want to wind in any further. And in fact, you can see a little bit of the aluminium here where it's kind of cut the thread again. Just cut it to a slightly better shape. Now what we want to do is we just want to just clear that out. We don't want the gunk in there, so get a little bit of this and make sure we've got nothing left in there. It's going to get in the way. And now that should just go in there just by hand now pretty easily, which it does, which it definitely wouldn't do before. So we need to just clean it up, get a bit of Loctite on it. Ideally what I should do actually, because I've had this WD-40 in here, is I probably should clean the thread before I put the Loctite on here, and also clean inside the hole with a cotton bud or something like that, which I'll try and find one here and see if I can do that now. So you can stop that. Alright, so that should do now. Now we should be able to get the thread tied on here, Loctite on here. So this Loctite, this is high performance, this one. So I don't know what the thread. I think this is just like a medium grade. It'll usually tell you on the back. There's like a permanent stuff and a semi-permanent. I'm pretty sure this is a semi-permanent. You don't have to put in permanent stuff on some of this stuff, otherwise you never get it undone. If you buy which are Loctite, this is a Permatex stuff, but the Loctite has different grades, like a red and a blue and a green or something like that. And now I could tighten that from the back. Actually, here it might be a little bit difficult because we've got the chain and everything in here. Okay, that's done. It's a little bit awkward, a little bit of an awkward spot to get to. We'll get the bike up on some stands now. Move on to fixing those carburetors. I'll just show you quickly with stands. For those of you who haven't mucked around with them, most guys who've got bikes usually have had stands and mucked around with them a little bit. I bought cheap ones before. Cheap ones typically are just not rigid enough. They usually have too much flex across this way and they move about and they're not long enough and they don't make it easy to lift your bike. If you've got a good stand and a good setup, you should actually be able to lift the bike up and put it on the stand by yourself without any help, without any worry of dropping your bike. So I've just set this up now for this bike, set the spacing correct for the pickups, and now I should just be able to put that up by myself. Now it's a good idea when you do this to have your side stand down, so if you do have an accident or something slips out of the way, which can happen sometimes, you can kind of just pull your bike back over onto that side, onto the side stand, and then everything will be fine. Now we could kick the side stand up out of the way, and that's good now because now we have access. Like if I wanted to oil the chain, or if I wanted to, which I'm going to need to do with this bike, or if I want to do anything to do with the back wheel or anything, it just makes the whole thing easier. Plus the bike's upright, you can kind of get everything on each side a lot more nicely. One thing I dislike about this stand that I would change is the nut that actually does the these pickups, because these are adjustable in and out, and on this it's got, normally you'd have something you could undo and do it with hand. This particular one, you need an Allen key set to set it. So once it's set, it's kind of set, and then you've got to get your Allen key out if you want to do it again. That's okay if you just got one bike. I usually have a few bikes, and so I'm swapping the stand depending on which bike I'm working on at the time, so I want to be able to adjust these quickly and easily, so I'd normally remove that and just put a wing nut kind of thing on the end of here so I could adjust this manually. Now the front stand, there's a couple of different options, and I've got both options here. This is the preferential kind of stand that I would normally use with the bike, and the idea is that this goes underneath your triple tree, your bottom triple tree, and it comes with various sized like pickups for the triple tree, and these just sort of label on top. But basically what has to happen is that this has to go underneath here. All the ones I've got here, they're all too small. It can't be able to move around like that. It's got to be a really snug fit inside there. If it's not, you won't be able to lift the bike this way. That fit is just so important. It's got to be right. Like any movement, forget it, won't work, won't be able to pick your bike up. In this case, we can't do it because I don't have one of these pickups that's the right size for this bike. They're all too small. They're like an MX bike size. But you know, I can have one machined, and I think you can buy them as well. So I'll probably have to just go and buy one, or otherwise I'll just get one made. Generally, that will go underneath there, fit into that there. It's too small, so it's not. See how it's kind of moving around there? That's no good. We're never going to be able to lift this bike like that. It has to be the right size. And normally I'll just push this down, and this whole stand would lift the bike, and the bike would be sitting like that on that stall, on that spool, or on the pickup. And the great thing about that is that then you can service all your front forks, which you can't do with an ordinary stand, or with the other type of stand. So it's a nuisance not being able to use this with this bike at the moment, because I would like to service the forks on this bike. They probably need new oil, they probably need new seals. Well, the seals look okay at the moment, but it's good to do the seals anyway. I'm going to do the oil. Oil in your forks should be changed fairly regularly. Most people just leave it forever. It affects your damping, it affects your handling, it affects it quite drastically. It would be like riding down the road with the wrong tyre pressure in your in your bike. Be the same sort of thing having the wrong. Once the oil gets old, it's had it just doesn't do its job, so it's always good to change that. And this kind of stand's ideal for doing that. It's not ideal if you can't use it. So I'll show you the other type of stand, because we're going to have to use that today. And this is the other type of stand, and it is designed to just go underneath your front fork legs, and up she comes. And now, I mean, I could service the front wheel obviously here. I could service the brakes. I've got a bit of bite going on here. The brake fluid's probably going to need doing on this bike as well. I mean, this should spin relatively freely. That means that the calipers probably have a little bit of binding on them. The tyres on this bike are going to need changing as well. They're rubbish as well. But anyway, we've got the bike up. I guess that's the main thing here. Now we can start sort of servicing the bike a little bit more. What I'll do once I get a spool for this centre stand, then or for this front stand, then what I'll do is I'll show you guys how that works, because that's a way better system, and I always use that system on my bikes back in New Zealand. I just obviously don't have the setup here to do it, but it is better. It's definitely much better. Okay, we've got to the situation where we've got the carbs out, taken the old carb rubbers off, straighten up a few of these connectors, because these connectors kind of get damaged a little bit when you get them off, especially if they're stuck, which they were in this case of this setup. I kind of bagged a bit of stuff away so that we can, you know, make it easier when we put things back together later. I put the seals, carb seals, and various other bits and pieces in here. Airbox seals, sorry. We've got our new carb rubbers, jets. And I was having a problem just, of course, getting the bottom of the carbs off. I haven't taken them off yet, but of course I've lost the impact driver bit that I would normally have. So I've used the Ryobi here with a bit of a, you know, just a screwdriver tip on the end. And that got all of them undone except for the one on the end, which had already been rounded off a little bit. I just could not get this one undone. So I thought I'd show you guys a trick that I use to get these things undone. So when they're undone and you can grab the end of them, what I do is I use a set of vice grips. Just do a set of vice grips, try and grab the end of the nut, and you can undo it with that. This is undone now, so now I'll be able to undo that with the screwdriver the rest of the way. So we'll get on to that. So to show you an old carb rubber, this is an older one here. You can see how they just get a little bit damaged as they get older, and they lose their sort of elasticity. These ones actually, to be fair, they're not too bad, but they're kind of getting to that point where they're getting difficult to get on and off the carbs, which they shouldn't be. They should be, you know, I mean, they've got to be a tight fit, but they shouldn't be. You shouldn't need to be prying them off with screwdrivers or anything like that. These ones have kind of got to that point where they kind of have lost kind of some of what they had, and they're not much good when they're like that. So the newer ones, as you'll see here, this is a new one. They just, see how they spring back, and these older ones they just kind of take their time to kind of bounce back. You can kind of see it there. I'll do it on the other side here so you can sort of see it. See, that springs back, it's just instant. And this one is just like, it kind of wants to hold the old shape that you've kind of pressed it into. It just isn't much good anymore. The other thing is that if I want to put these on, like putting one of these old ones on, so say for example this one, like, it's just really, really hard to get that onto there. It just doesn't want to go on. And the new one, if I press that on, see, that just goes on easily. It just, you can get that on, you can get it off, and that's how they should be. And if they're not like that, then you want to replace them, because you know, they go from being like this to being pretty useless or cracked, or you've got an inlet manifold hole or crack or something going on, and then that's no good because you'll end up stuffing your engine up. So just replace them. They're not expensive. I think I spent about maybe $40 or something on all of them. Well, I have to look at the price to be fair, but it wasn't a lot. These could be replaced. I mean, ideally you'd probably replace these as well. I'm going to be a little bit lazy and reuse them, but you could just use, you know, like ordinary clamps, ordinary hose clamps, I guess, would do the job. These are just a little bit specialized, that's all. And they have these little kind of ends on them which are designed to kind of sit into some of the rubber slots and things that are on here like that, so that they don't move around. The problem with using hose clamps, of course, when they're able to move around, is that if this moves around, and it's because you're trying to get at this on the engine, if this is moved around and the screw head's kind of pushed itself around where you can't get it with a screwdriver, you'll have a hell of a job getting these off. So that's why it's better to use the original ones. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get the end of these carbs, and let's just have a look and see what's going on here, how it's looking. It'd be interesting to see if it's all gummed up. Often they are, especially when it's sat for a long time. The petrol here now doesn't really smell like petrol anymore. It smells kind of like, it kind of smells like I'm working in turpentine, to be honest. It's not a particularly pleasant smell, and you know that the petrol's really gone off and it's really been there for a long time. When it's smelling like that, it's never good. Yeah, and see, this is the other thing. See these carb rubbers here, these seals, they've just completely flattened off. So you can sort of see there that they've just flattened off. They should be rounded. So if I was to reuse those, it would just be hopeless. Like, you really, when you do this job, you've really got to have new seals like this to put in. You know, I mean, I've seen people put celastic gasket, like kind of gasket cement around these things to kind of seal this up afterwards. It's 90% of the time it's a failure. You just have, you know, petrol pouring out everywhere. We've got a little bit of gunk in the bottom of here. You know, you can see where it's kind of like that. That's just residue where the petrol's dried up. And we can clean this out with a bit of carb cleaner. Best thing to clean this, I'll show you. Throttle body cleaner, carb cleaner. This stuff will do the job. This is good for cleaning this stuff out. Usually you have an ice cream container or something that won't melt with that stuff in it. The other thing is, it's a good idea to kind of do one of these each one at a time, because it's easy to kind of lose track of where you're at. And the other thing is, if you take this apart and you don't remember which jet goes where, or you've got something wrong, or something's going a bit dodge, you can always take one of the other ones apart and you can have a look at it afterwards, so that you can kind of figure out what's happening. Yeah, that's about it. Apparently this was spilling petrol out the bottom of the bowls. I'm not surprised now, actually, after seeing. So I suspect that maybe someone's taken this apart before and tried to seal it again, and you know, it's probably just leaked out. Now what we can do, I'll just get another little screwdriver and we'll take that floats out. Okay, so these pins in the middle here, they just kind of slide out if you can get hold of the end of the damn things, which I can't. Okay, I'll just get myself another screwdriver, slightly smaller one. That pin is just sitting in there, it's not glued in there or anything like that. You can just lift that out, and then the float will lift off the top. It's got a little spring and a little needle in here. I guess it's something people don't see every day now, neither is these carburetor setups, because everything's fuel injected, of course. So this has these actually look pretty good, but what can happen, that little cone on the end of there can get kind of like a little indentation on it, and then what will happen is, it's designed to start and stop the fuel flowing into the carburetor bowl. So it kind of lifts up as the petrol empties out. It basically it lifts up, it drops down, it opens the little valve there. The petrol comes in, and then the floats are really delicately balanced basically. And what will happen is they'll float back up, and they shut the fuel off again until that process happens again. Some of them have little springs underneath them. This one doesn't seem to. This actually looks like a pretty cheap setup compared to normally what you'd see on, say, the CBR400. CBR400's got a slightly better setup than this. I mean, these are reasonable carburetors. But you know, they would have been built to a price, I guess, with, you know, plastic floats and things like that. They all look a little bit different. And it's got like a little bouncy kind of piece of plastic on the bottom of here that kind of holds this in place. It's hard to kind of describe it, but basically you can lift all that stuff out. But you need to check those. Those need to have no wear on them. If they have any wear on them, then it's not going to seal. It's not going to work properly. And then the other things that we want to check is we want to check the actual main jet, which is this one here, and the secondary jets. And we just want to make sure they're not blocked or gummed up, because they can get blocked and they can get gummed. And we can just unscrew those. You've got to be a little bit careful with these. It's easy to damage them. If you damage them, they're stuffed basically. So what we can do is we can have a look. See, this is quite gummed up from the looks of things. If I hold that up to the light, I can't even see through that. Like, I should be able to see through that. You should be able to see through that. You should be able to see some light at the other side of that. We can't, and the reason we can't is because it's all filled up with gummed up fuel. So this is never going to run nicely with it set up like that. Let's get the other one out of here. Don't take these screws out. These are like air screws and things. If you take those screws out, resetting them will be a pain in the neck. You don't want to do that. There's no need to adjust those unless they've been already buggered about with. And you can see this one as well. See, it's got little holes on the end of here. This is, got a lot of gunk in the end of here. A lot of kind of residue build up on that, which is not so good. We want to clean these up properly or replace them. And again, it should have a hole down the center, which you should be able to see some light down. If you hold it up to the light and have a look down it, you should be able to see light down the end of it. You can't, it's blocked. So that's blocked, that's blocked. This bike's never going to run like this. It's never going to run nicely. Now we can undo the main jet here. We can take this out as well. We'll take this out and have a look at this. We might as well take them all out since we're mucking around with it. Okay, so we want to take this out now. Now it's tempting to just put a little crescent on the end of that. I've done this before. If it's not too tight, you can sometimes get it undone, but it's real easy to damage it. I don't recommend doing it this way. Get a little crescent on the end of here that's the correct size, little socket. That one's the correct size for this, and then you can undo it. Then you can undo it easily, and there's no risk of damage if you do that. And again, this has got holes in it, so all these holes should all be clear. They're not. They're bunged up. Down the centre, it's got a hole. So you can see the light down the centre of this. That's good. There shouldn't be anything gumming that up. Can go in the bath to be clean now. Oh, the other thing we should say about these too is these have sizes written on them too. So not so much this one, but certainly the other ones do. These. Let's just see if we can see the sizes on these. Oh yeah, so there it is. Yeah, so that's a, what is that, a 35.9 or 359 or something like that. It's a little bit hard to see because I've got the foam kind of on there. Yeah, see how you can see that number on there? So you can identify these, and you can tell what jet sizes you have. The secondary jet will have the same kind of thing. It's usually on the top or on the side. I mean, this one's not in real good shape. It's got a little bit of gummy kind of stuff on it. Yeah, there it is. So we can see it there. See, 102. So what we could do now is we could check those sizes against what we got in this kit, which is probably what we want to do, because rather than just getting one of these new kits and just trusting that the sizes are going to be correct, we should actually open it and have a look and see what sizes we actually have, because often with kits, they're designed for different markets, and different markets will have different temperatures. See, with fuel injection, what a fuel injector does is it works out the ambient temperature, and it works out how much air to fuel ratio is needed at different revs. With a carburetor, it works a little bit differently, and jets are what determine those values at various revs, and along with the needle size and all those kinds of things. So this needle will actually have a size on it as well. And if you start changing this stuff out and you change it to the wrong size, you could end up with something that's running too lean, or it could either be running too lean, or it could be running too rich, and then you'd have running problems, which wouldn't be so cool. See, that's the new bit. So what these look like they're going to be the same actually. Well, that part certainly is. So technically, we don't really have to worry about cleaning that. We could just screw the new one into here. I'm pretty sure this doesn't have a size written on it. It's just one size is all, as long as it's the same. So that could screw into there. We'll blow some carb cleaner through this first before we start doing this. Let's just have a look at the other sizes of the other things that we've got here. So here are the other bits. So this, what size does it say that is? 90, right. So this is not the same size is this one, because I remember I think this was 102, yeah. So 90, 102, you know, it's different. The hole size down the center will be different. This is probably bigger. We'll clean it up and we'll have a look soon. So I wouldn't go messing around changing these straight away until you know what your setup's actually going to be like. It's a bit pointless to change that. And let's have a look at this one and see if this one's the same size or whether this is a different size. Possibly this is a different size as well.
I take it it's not allowed in, well, there's a bit good.
No, we're doing them in here. So this one here is, what is that? It's a 135, I think. 35. The old one was, I think it might have been the same. 35. 3, 5. It looks like it's got a 9 on the end of there. We'll clean that up. We'll have a look at those as well. That one looks like it might be a close size, but still better to deal with something that's a known rather than deal with something that's unknown. So if we put new jets in here and we change the jet settings, we're probably going to have a problem. So it's probably better to just clean it up. So what we've done now, I've got a little bit of carb cleaner in the bottom of these, just let it soak for a little while. I've got the jets in this little buckety kind of a container lid thing, just soaking there. We'll let those soak for a little while. We're going to give these a clean up and then we'll see how we go. I've had a go at cleaning these jets. The jets were extremely difficult to clean, especially these little ones here, these little secondary jets. They just were so gummed up, they just had so much gunky stuff down there. I end up doing it, well, kind of the naughty way really. The ideal way to do this is to have an air compressor and be able to blow compressed air down the inside of the jets, so that you can blow any gunk that's out there. But of course, you know, and sometimes you just got to soak them in the carb cleaner for a little while to try and dissolve the varnish. The ideal probably would be to soak them overnight. I didn't want to do that on my weight. I got myself a couple of little tiny bits of wire here. This is not the ideal way to do it. I just, you know, poke them through the hole basically to try and clear those holes. The problem with doing that is if you scratch the hole or you enlarge the hole, then your jetting's not going to be correct. So that's why this is not the ideal way to do it. Now I'm going to fit the new gaskets, because the old gaskets are completely had it, as you can see. As I showed you earlier, they just had it. Oh, the other thing, there was a lot of varnish also around these edges in here. It took quite a while to get the varnish out. The varnish is like a nail polish. It's gone hard basically all around the outside in there. It's just old petrol residue that's gone hard and turned into a varnish. So you've got to get rid of all that before you seal it again. You've got to clean all these mating surfaces so that when I put the new gaskets in here and put this thing back together so that it all works. Anyway, I'll put those two back together now, do the other two, and we'll see where we go from there. Okay, I've got these cleaned up now. I've got rid of all the varnish that was around the edges on these. You've got to kind of scrape it out, give them a bit of a clean with the Carb cleaner, come back, scrape it out a little bit more. It tends to flake off. Now, putting these gaskets back in can be a bit of a pain because they tend to want to flop around and fall all over the place. What I tend to do is I use a little bit of grease. I just put a little bit of grease on the outside of the gaskets, and then that helps them kind of sit in place and kind of stick there, if you like, while I mount this back onto the carburetor. So we'll do that now. Okay, so I've got a little bit of grease just around the outside of this now, and that'll just stop that from falling out, which is what we want. We don't want it falling out all over the place, and we don't want it moving over the edges and stuff like that. We want to make sure that it's actually in there in the correct place. There. The other one's done as well. Okay, that's that done. We'll take the other two off the other side now, and we'll do those as well. It's the next job, this one and this one. It's pretty ganked up. It's one of the worst ones so far, actually, that one. See, here's another thing, this fuel hose has completely had it. It's completely non-flexible. It's going to have, that section will have to be replaced for sure. You put the fuel in there with that there like that. Not much good. Yeah, it's pretty gummy as well. A lot of gunk in the bottom of there. So all that gunk in there is no good. So we'll just put these off to one side. We'll clean those a little bit later. Oh, this one actually we can see through it, so that's always good. That we can see through it. Let's just see if we can look through the other steps on the other side. Yeah, there. Yeah, we can see through those. Yeah. Oh man, look at this. It's just full of gunk. Yeah, no, can't see through that. It's completely blocked. It's blocked. It should have a huge hole in it. It's completely blocked. Oh, look at that. It's absolutely filthy. Yep. Not good, not cool. Yeah, and these actually look okay, which I'm not surprised it looked okay, and all the other ones, no reason why it should be different. One other thing we should say actually about these floats too is you just got to make sure these floats don't have any cracks or holes in them or damage on the middle. If these are damaged at all, they need to be replaced. If they're supposed to be just out of float, they're supposed to be out of float. If they've got a hole in them or if they're cracked or something like that, they're not going to work. So it's really important that they don't. And now we'll just get a bit of that carb cleaner in here. You can see the varnish. See here, this is what varnish is like. This kind of stuff here. That's not even a hard bit, but the varnish can get quite. See, yeah, it's like. Well, that's a good piece there. Yeah. So that stuff's all got to be cleaned off, and you don't want that falling inside your carbs neither. You want to wipe all that stuff off and get rid of it. Okay, so these little holes on the end, as I sort of said earlier. Oh, my gloves have had it. This stuff melts gloves completely. Change these gloves out. So these jets have a really tiny hole down here. You'll never see it, I don't think, on camera. So, that one's quite blocked. So it can't be blocked on the ends here. These holes on the ends have to be unblocked. And it can't be blocked down the center. It's really important that it's not blocked down there as well. So what we can do, the ideal is to have a compressor and blow compressed air down here. I don't have a compressor, I'm not here at the moment anyway, so can of this in the end and see if we can get it spraying out the end, which we can. So that's good. So that sprays through, so that means that's clear, which is perfect. That one's clear, and I've got one more in here which I've got soaking in the solution. Okay, this one we should be able to see through. Yeah, okay, we can see through that as well now. There's a light gap there. That's what we need. We need a light gap there, so we'll put a spray through that as well, just to make sure we've cleared it. When the petrol starts flowing back through these things properly as well, that will actually help ungum it all as well a little bit. Yeah, so that's cleared now. And now for this thing. So we just get a bit of an old toothbrush. We want all the varnishy, gummy rubbish out of here. We can't have any of this in here. No good. Okay, around the sides here there's like this gummy kind of residue. We want all of that out. Try not to scratch the surface, obviously. You just want to try and lightly remove that gummy kind of build up. It might stop it from sealing later. And then what I've got here for doing this as well, I've got a white little wire brush, which is just got, it's not a really crazy wire brush, but it's just enough to sort of get stuff off this. It's like a, use that to try and clean all those channels up. Don't use anything too harsh. This is a pretty light brush. You don't want to put big gouges or anything in here. When you clean it up, it starts to help you see the varnish deposits to the left, like there's one there. See how it's kind of come off. But that would, if that came off inside the carb, it could block the jets again, so that's why we want all that stuff off. Okay, I think that's about as good as we're going to get this one. I mean, it looks, it's got a little bit of surface varnish still on there, but we're not really going to get that off without soaking this for some substantial amount of time. It's not really going to cause any problems anyway. We just want to just quickly rinse it off now and let it dry. So make sure we've got every last bit of gunk off it. The jets are all done. Just get those and brush off as well. Not recommended, people. Not recommended that you poke wire through the holes, but that's what I'm doing just because these were so badly gummed. But it's not the recommended method at all, so follow my example with caution. Okay, so we've fitted the carb rubbers here now just to the inlet manifold, just to see kind of work out how they're going to go. There's like basically 2 screws in one direction, 2 screws in the other direction. And on the bottom there's 3 screws in one direction and 1 screw in the opposite direction. Now I haven't got the manual here for this, so I'm not quite sure, but I think that the idea is that you put a long screwdriver in through these side holes and you undo each of these, then undo the one from that side, and these would normally already be attached to the carburetors, and then you lift the whole carburetor and the manifold off, and then later you would put it back on. I'm thinking that's probably the way. I'm going to have to do a little bit of research tonight and try and figure it out. Seems like the most sensible way, because there'd be no other way to get to these screws otherwise, provided of course that I've got these on in the right way. I mean, it might be that one's supposed to be one of these is supposed to be over here or something like that. I'm not sure, but I think I've got it right. And then the carburetor, which we'll just put on for now, just to sit on here. The carburetor would normally be sitting on top of here, like so. And you just basically whittle that on. It should go on nicely. Well, when those carb rubbers had it, which they were in the case of this bike, and certainly in my 400, you can't whittle it on like that. You just can't put it on. It just doesn't want to do its thing. But here it's behaving quite nicely. So anyway, that's about all I can do tonight on this. Hopefully tomorrow I can I'll go and buy a long screwdriver so that I can take this off and hopefully get it on, work out exactly which way around those inlet manifolds are supposed to go with the screws on them. We can get this on. We'll buy some more fuel pipe, because that bit's had it. I'll check the fuel pipe on the tank as well, and then hopefully we can fire this up and get it running. See what it sounds like. see what it runs like. Anyway, that's the basic servicing of the carb. The next thing to do normally would be to set the carb slides all to the same values. And ideally, if we had a carb balancing kit, which I don't have here at the moment, we would set that up as well and would balance these carburetors. If the carburetors are balanced properly, it'll run better. Just, you know, to get every sort of ounce of performance out of one of these bikes, that's the best way to do it. I think I'm going to buy one of those carb kits because I tend to muck around with carburetor bikes quite a bit because I quite like messing around with them. I like these old 90s era 250s and 400s and two-stroke bikes and things like that, and they've all got carbs, so you need the carb balancing kit. Anyway, that's all I'm going to talk about tonight. We're done pretty much, and we'll get back onto it again tomorrow.